4 years of college, how many times did you experience losing?
4.
4 games. You know it's not going to be like that in the NFL.
We'll see.
For most quarterbacks, this would be a career-defining moment, and not in a good way. I mean potential career killer. Getting benched for a freshman in the championship game, those moments create career backups and accountants. But Jalen Hurts not only survived this moment, but only 5 years later and his career is taking off. But before Jalen Hurts got to reach these new heights, he had to first survive his lowest football moment. So without further ado, bros, it's time to kick it off. And y'all know what time it is, so cue the Wayne.
Yeah, you'll never know quitter, 'cause I'ma go get her.
Alright man, real quick here before we jump in, it's time for a word from today's sponsor, SeatGeek. Now with over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek's the #1 rated ticketing app. There's more than 70,000 events on SeatGeek every day, including sports, concerts, festivals, and more. I like to come on here and grab these Monster Jam tickets. I figured since my son always dragged me to these events, I might as well get some good seats while I'm at it. SeatGeek always want to make sure you getting a good deal. So when you're on the app, just look for the green dots, because green means good and red means bad. It's really simple, kind of hard to mess that up. So with SeatGeek, every ticket's backed by their buyer guarantee, and they're the only site that lets you return tickets ahead of events with swaps. As always, I came through. You know I got y'all a deal. Just use code FlemLo for $20 off tickets at SeatGeek. Again, that's $20 off your first purchase with code FlemLo. And be sure to click the link in the description to download the app. Man, shout out to SeatGeek once again for sponsoring the video. Without further ado, it's time to jump back in. And one time, Jalen Hurts sat in the background and observed. He watched his dad coach the game and he watched his brother play it. But when he got to high school, Jalen stepped into the spotlight. The light suited him well. Dude been shining ever since. His older brother, Avrion, named after their dad, was the first quarterback in the family. He quarterbacked at Channelview High School in Houston, Texas, before Jalen eventually came through and took over. If you follow the sport, you know the legend of high school football in Texas. And that's the football environment this dude was born and raised in. It's hard to be the first anything in Texas when it comes to football, but he'll be the first Houston-born quarterback to start in the Super Bowl. One of Jalen's early goals when he took over as a sophomore was to get revenge on every team that had beat his older brother. But by the time he was finished, he done a lot more than that. He took things to new heights and still hasn't reached his ceiling. So as a junior, he was named district MVP. He put up 3,500 total yards and 40 touchdowns. Then the next season, the man go for 3,700, and this time he scores a total of 50 touchdowns. In 2016, Jalen Hurts took his talents to the University of Alabama to play for the Crimson Tide. The true freshman immediately took the starting job, and right from day one, dude was off to the races. In his very first year, dude broke the school record for quarterback rushing yards in one single season. Now, he also broke the school record for touchdowns in a season. I remember when I found out dude was a powerlifting champion. Like, how many quarterbacks you know that's a powerlifting champion? So his dad had him compete in powerlifting when he was young, which helped turn a skinny kid to a QB sneak savant. At only 16 years old, his weight room numbers was crazy. He squatted 570, deadlift 585. But impressive as his physical skills might be, his mental and emotional strength is what set him apart. And when I go back and look at his NFL scouting reports, I feel like they really glossed over the mental aspects of his game. And I don't even mean his ability to read defenses, I mean more of just his leadership ability. I've seen intangibles carry quarterbacks through the draft process, but Jalen was only getting evaluated for his physical skill set. One of the reasons his mentality and work ethic is so important, you knew when he got to the league he was going to work to improve. We should have had a pretty good idea that work would translate. He had the biggest college program on his back as a freshman, but the top college programs never have enough talent. And the very next year, they brought in 5-star Tua. In only his second year, Jalen Hurts led Alabama to his second national title game since he took over at quarterback. They made it the year before, but Jalen couldn't finish the job. But now he was a year older, prepared to get back to this moment. But with that being said, like, what could really prepare you for the highest and lowest moments of your life simultaneously?
Jalen Hurts, of course, who's 25-2 as a starter. Tagovailoa, who's the true freshman, throw the football well. And
take a lot to pull a guy who's been clutch in his career and has won 25 out of 27 starts, but that's how much they think of the passing skills of Tagovailoa.
The sophomore quarterback falls behind early, but he was prepared to bring his team back like he'd done in times before. But Nick Saban, the coach he revered and still does, decided to bench Jalen in favor of a young Tua. 1 year behind Jalen, he was the new freshman sensation that everybody at Alabama was now excited about. His strength as a player were different than Jalen's, and watching them side by side exposed some flaws in Jalen's game. So it's halftime of the Natty. Jalen's benched, Tua's in, and he brings the team back with some beautiful passes. Like, y'all know how cold Tua is once he start cooking, and he was doing his thing because he's a damn good quarterback in his own right. So Tua brings Alabama back and they win the national championship. As all of this is happening, the camera finds Jalen, but he didn't look despondent. He wasn't down. He wasn't tripping. I mean, I'm sure he was inside, but he handled it like a G. He was happy for the team, so he leaned into that. Dude's got a strong mind, so he was able to deal with the cameras. But later when he was alone, he was gonna have to deal with himself. That moment would come far away from prying eyes of the camera, in a private moment with his parents back at the team hotel. When he took the armor off, he was just an 18-year-old kid. He was lost, desperately seeking new direction from his parents. In 2018, he sat down with ESPN, and he opened up about that night after the game. It's been a long year. I can look back after the national championship game. I'm in my hotel room with my parents, my brother and my sister. And I'm in my parents, my mom and my dad's arms crying. I looked up at my dad and said, "What are we gonna do now?" Then he looked me in my eyes and said, "We're gonna fight." That "what are we gonna do now" line, that hits kinda hard. Kinda reminds you of the Booby Miles scene in Friday Night Lights. I know he wasn't hurt, but this stuff can end careers. If you get the backup tag in college, use a backup, my boy. There's only 32 starting jobs in the NFL, and getting benched in the championship don't look good on a resume. You can imagine all the hard work dude had put in, and to finally get the goal that he thought he always wanted. But when it came, it didn't happen under the circumstances he anticipated, and now he's trying to process all that as a kid. You could feel his desperation when he was asking that question, but you feel the certainty and resilience in the answer his dad gave him. He took his dad's directive literally and stayed at Bama the next season, when literally nobody would have blamed him for transferring. At that point, it was a whole lot of programs who wanted him. He could have walked in, said what up, and been a starter immediately. But he decided to compete with Tua for his old position. So he stayed and he fought and he lost, but he won. He hung in and ran little sub packages throughout the season. He went from Lamar Jackson comparisons to Taysom Hill comparisons. But he brought the same mentality even in a lesser role. And I know a lot of y'all probably remember exactly what happens next. So Bama gets back to the SEC championship. This time, they was being led by Tua. Dude was up for the Heisman, won a Walter Camp and a Maxwell, and Jalen Hurts at 18 is already an afterthought. But Tua had been battling with injuries all season. And when left tackle Jonah Williams, who's currently the starter for the Bengals, steps back on Tua's ankle and Tua is done. So with pretty much the full fourth quarter left to go, Jalen Hurts is all of a sudden thrust into the game. Ironically, he's playing the exact same team that he was benched against only 1 year earlier. When he chose to stay at Bama, he felt that was the right move. But obviously, he had no idea how things would turn out. I bet at some points in the season, he probably questioned his decision. But in this single moment, everything became clear. With 11 minutes on the game clock, it was his chance for redemption. The score was 21-28 with Jalen's team trailing. Alabama had never led that game at any point, but in 10 minutes of game time, Jalen Hurts was about to change that. On his first pass of the game, dude faced a 3rd and 12 in his own territory, and that pass rush was crucial. He hung in the pocket and he found the tight end for 13 yards, thus converting a first down and keeping the drive alive. On the next set of downs, he gets flushed out the pocket, but he finds Jalen Waddle down the field near the sideline. The next 3rd down was a 3rd and goal from the 10. Jalen extends the play and finds time for Jerry Jeudy to shake loose. He hit him perfectly in stride, completing an 80-yard drive, tying up the game. So Georgia had started an insurance agent named Jake, but when he faced 3rd and long, this time he couldn't make the play. Then Georgia threw in Justin Fields to run a fake punt, but on 4th and 11, he came up way short. So now Jalen Hurts get the ball back on the 50, and the short field meant a short time before Bama took the lead. For Tua, Georgia's pass rush was a problem the whole game, but the strengths of Jalen's game helped him avoid the rush. On 2nd down, he avoids a sack and gains a few yards, which sets up 3rd and 7. You already know he got it. He threw another pass to the sideline, then ran it in the next play, leading his team to a win and completing his redemption arc. Same way he got replaced, now he was doing the replacing, and he brought his team back and made them SEC champions. But when the Natty rolled around, Tua was back as the starter. Jalen barely played, and Bama ended up getting crushed. I've always liked Tua, and I still like Tua, but I never could understand why Jalen Hurts didn't get a chance. Tua was playing bad and they fell down by a lot. Why not give Jalen the opportunity to bring the team back? But still, 2018 was a great year for Jalen Hurts. He had his redemption game and got his degree the same year. So with that, his saga at Alabama was done. So he moved to greener pastures, transferred to Oklahoma. He threw for a career high of 3,800 yards, and he ran for a career high of 1,300 yards. He scored 52 tuds and led the Sooners to the playoffs, but they got buried by Joey B and LSU. That was tough luck for Jalen. That was maybe the greatest college team of all time, and he just happened to run into him. Still, he finished 2nd place in the Heisman vote in that season, and then that was it. He had laid out his college resume. He had done all he can do, but the scouts still wasn't loving him. Here's what Todd McShay said about Dude when he was coming out. I see Hurts as a day 3 prospect right now, and a few people I've talked to around the league agree. So Jalen's skills didn't impress scouts in NFL circles, but skills can be developed if you made it the right stuff. I ain't know if Jalen Hurts would be successful in the league, but I knew he would give himself the best chance to do so. He was drafted 2nd round to the Philadelphia Eagles, but they had just paid Carson Wentz, so it was kind of weird. Being a great quarterback take a lot more than arm talent. Your personality matters as much as your skill set. I think that's what Jalen made his mark on the team, as Carson Wentz's main issue is his lack of leadership. In a lot of ways, him and Jalen was kind of like polar opposites, as Carson Wentz's primary weakness as a quarterback was mental, and Jalen Hurts' primary weakness as a QB was physical. And I'm not talking size, strength, or athleticism here. We all know he ain't lacking really in none of those areas. But he was never seen as a great passer of the ball, whereas Wentz was a natural when it came to that department. But nobody understood this next thing better than Jalen. You might be the starter today, but it could change in an instant. In December 2020, that's exactly what happened when Carson Wentz was benched and replaced by Jalen. Bro, the Eagles was 3-8 when Jalen took over the job, and in his first career start, he led the team to a W. In his second start, they lost a close one, but it wasn't on him. He threw for 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. On the ground, he rushed for 63 yards with another touchdown, but Kyler Murray went for 400, and the Eagles take the L. The next game, they lose to Dallas. Got handled in that one, but Jalen still accounted for over 400 yards of offense. It's wild because when you look at him today leading his team to a Super Bowl, you think he got the job and just never let it go. But the truth is he was benched in the last game of 2020, in a game where his team was only trailing by 3. So at first glance, it kind of felt like Bama all over again. And a lot of the Eagles players was pissed at Doug Peterson. Now Peterson swore this move was strictly trying to win the game. So supposedly he thought that Nate Sudfeld was better. But Doug Peterson's a good coach. I love what he's doing with Trevor Lawrence, and it's hard for me to believe he thought this was a good move. Bro, this had to be a tank move that came down from the top, and it makes sense because the loss moved them up 3 spots in the draft. But I don't know, because Doug Peterson was fired after the season, and who would agree to tank without another year to use the pick? Then the Eagles flipped the pick and got another first rounder, and in a receiver rich draft they still got Devontae Smith. So in the long run, it really ended up working out for Jalen. But we still gotta discuss how it must have felt in the moment. If you Jalen, it had to feel like dudes was playing with your career and kind of forcing them to relive his lowest football moment. But the way his teammates pressed the coach about him getting benched, that means the team had spoken. This is who they wanted to follow. So that offseason, the Eagles traded Carson Wentz, which cleared the way for Jalen to make the team his own. The year dude was drafted, the Eagles won 4 games, but his first full year as the starter, they got back to the playoffs. Matter of fact, I don't think he's ever started for a team, meaning for a full season and then missed the playoffs. 2016 at Bama, 2017 at Bama, and they made it in 2019 when he was playing at Oklahoma. You can take it all the way back to his high school days. He took them to the playoffs for the first time in 22 years. This past season, he leads the team to a 14-3 record. If he didn't get hurt at the end of the year, it might have been better than that. This could have been Jalen Hurts' most memorable moment, but he fought, and eventually he turned the battle in his favor.